Good morning, Excellency, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. Warmly informed that our program will go on Facebook in 5 minutes. So when the program starts, please make sure your microphone is mute. Good morning, Excellency, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. Our program is now common. Warmly welcome to the digital launching AVI SDG dialogue. I'm Charya, Deputy Director of the Center for Sustainable Development Study of Asian Vision Institute. I greatly honor to be a moderator for today's event. Excellency, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have our distinguished speakers who are prominent leaders and researchers in the field of sustainable development for our launching event today. First of all, please allow me to introduce our distinguished leader and speaker joining us today morning. First, please allow me to welcome Excellency Sai Samar, the Minister of Environment. Currently, he also serving as Chair of the National Council for Sustainable Development of the Kingdom of Cambodia. In this capacity, he has been working in close cooperation with relevant institutes and organizations to ensure environmental protection, biodiversity conservation, sustainable development, and inclusive economic growth for Cambodia development. Prior to this person, he served as Deputy Secretary General for the Royal Government of Cambodia, Office of the Council of Ministers, and Permanent Vice Chair and Secretary General of the Land Staff Authority. Excellency Sai Samar received his Doctor of Philosophy from the School of Biological Science, Monash University, Australia in 2009. Next, please welcome Excellency Suhyara, the Director General of Asian Cultural Council, ACC. Currently, he also serves as Member of Parliament representing of Pravihir Province constituency and as Vice Chairman of the Commission of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation Information Media of the National Assembly of Cambodia. He obtained an MBA in Project Development from Charles Sturt University of Australia in 2002, a higher diploma in Art of Diplomacy from the Royal School of Public Administration in 2000, a bachelor degree in Public Law from the Royal University of Law and Economics in 1998, and in the same year, he obtained a diploma in banking from Institute of National Bank. Third, may I introduce Dr. Pauline Tamezis. My apologies if I didn't pronounce your name correctly. Dr. Pauline Tamezis is a resident coordinator of United Nations in Cambodia. She holds more than 20 years of experience in development cooperation, policy development, advocacy, and management, both within the UN system and in government, non-profit, and business sector. In previous assignment, she served as UNDP Country Director in Bangladesh, Asia Regional Democratic Governance Practice Leader based in Thailand, and Practice Manager and Anti-Corruption Policy at New York headquarters. Last but not least, Dr. Chiang Van-Rit, President of Asian Vision Institute. Dr. Chiang Van-Rit is a public policy analyst and government relations strategist. He has over a decade of research experience in both political and economic analysis, with a focus on Southeast Asia. He is currently serving as president of the Asian Vision Institute, where he lead project on geopolitical risk analysis, regional security, smart village development, inclusive digital economy, and leadership development. He was honored a Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum in 2013 and Southeast Asia Young Leader by the IISS Shangri-La Dialogue in 2016. Excellency, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, follow our agenda today. First, we will have an introduction of AVI SDG dialogue by Dr. Chiang Van-Rit. Second, the remark on UN support of the SDG in Cambodia by Dr. Pauline Tamezis. Third, the remark on culture and sustainable development by Excellency Suhyara. Last, the remark on SDG in Cambodia, official launching the AVI SDG dialogue by Excellency Sai Samar. So without further delay, I'm pleased to invite first honorable guest, Dr. Chiang Van-Rit, to give an introduction of AVI SDG dialogue. Please, Dr. Chiang Van-Rit, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Excellency Dr. Sai Samar, Minister of the Ministry of Environment and Chair of the National Council for Sustainable Development of the Kingdom of Cambodia. Excellency Suhyara, Director General of the Asian Cultural Council and also Member of Parliament and Vice Chairman of the Commission of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation, Information and Media of the National Assembly of Cambodia. Excellency Dr. Pauline Tamezis, Resident Coordinator of United Nations in Cambodia. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. On behalf of the Asian Vision Institute, I wish to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished speakers and online participants for making your valuable time possible to attend this launching event on AVI SDG Dialogue. I would like to thank the team from the Center for Sustainable Development Studies for making this dialogue a reality. The Asian Vision Institute was founded in January 2019 with the vision to promote peaceful, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable society in Asia by impacting positive changes through knowledge co-creation and multi-stakeholder dialogue and partnership. We also endeavor to promote Asian wisdom and perspective and the values of humanity, peace, and cultural diversity in Asia. To realize that broad, ambitious vision, the Asian Vision Institute has the following missions. First, try to promote inclusive and people-centered development. Second, conduct practical policy and program research. Third, strengthen multi-stakeholder dialogue and cross-structural partnership and collaboration. And fourth, advance knowledge sharing and build leadership and innovation capacities. Today, our launching of the Asia Vision Institute Sustainable Development Goals Dialogue is a new platform, a new initiative to promote multi-stakeholder discussion on a wide range of issues relating to SDGs. As you know, the COVID pandemic have seriously impacted the development and the progress of realizing SDGs in Cambodia and in the world at large. So this is our intention and our ambition to contribute to promoting the dialogue on SDG in order to develop a better policy intervention in realizing this SDG in Cambodia. We will have monthly dialogue, roundtable discussion on various topics from next month until the end of the year, and we will also extend our policy dialogue from next year as well. So some of the key topics that we will have dialogue from next month will focus on food security and poverty reductions, especially amid the COVID-19 pandemic, equality in access to education, clean water, sanitation and rural development, affordable and clean energy in Cambodia, industry, innovation and infrastructure, responsible consumption and production, biodiversity conservation and sustainable development. So these are the key topics that we will discuss subsequently in the following months until the end of this year. And for next year, topics we will release later. What are the emerging issues that we need to focus on when it comes to sustainable development. So we hope that this dialogue will generate new ideas, policy inputs for the Cambodian government and development partners and other stakeholders in Cambodia, including the private sector, in working together to realize SDGs. So once again, thank you very much, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, for your support. And we look forward to further collaborating and discussing all these topics with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chewanrat, for your very interesting insight introduction. Next, please allow me to invite Dr. Pauline Thamesi to deliver her remark on the UN support of the SDG in Cambodia. Please, Dr. Pauline, the floor is yours.
Good morning. His Excellency Sai Samal, Ministry of Environment and Chair of the National Council for Sustainable Development, His Excellency Suo Member of Parliament, Vice Chairman of Commission on Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation, Information and Media, and Director General of the Asian Cultural Council, Dr. Ching Varnerith, President of AVI. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, I am grateful, very encouraged, and excited to see the Asian Vision Institute under Dr. Vanarit's leadership focus their expertise and policy influence on Cambodia's sustainable goals and integrating COVID response in these discussions. And that we also have today such high-level participation from His Excellency Sai Samal and His Excellency Susiara, who can lead our discussions on both the substance of the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the politics, the political commitment and development that are at the heart of the 2030 agenda. The Cambodian SDGs, under the royal government's guidance, have been tailored to the country's needs and specifically expanded, adding a critical 18th SDG, a landmine-free Cambodia, due by 2025, a subject that we know is close to some Prime Minister's heart, having experienced the horrors of war firsthand and its lasting consequences. In fact, so well aligned are the Cambodian SDGs to national priorities that when the United Nations helped the Ministry of Planning to create a monitoring and evaluation system for the National Strategic Development Plan, we took many of these same SDG indicators to serve in the NSDP. Our objective today and that of the coming dialogues is to put forward practical policy options that help us meet the challenges ahead and bring us further towards achieving the 2030 goals. In that respect, I would like to suggest 3 areas of rich policy opportunities. Each presents ways that Cambodia can accelerate prosperity for all in the short to medium and hopefully long term, but does so in a way that doesn't rob future generations, our children and our grandchildren's children, of the natural ecosystems, biodiversity, and wealth of our planet. Instead, these are policy options that ensure that the country we hand on to them is prosperous, secure, and better prepared to withstand the shocks that they will inevitably face. First, on ending poverty, SDG 1, reducing inequality, SDG 10, and those that focus on building prosperity. We have learned a lot in the past year through COVID's shock to our society and economy. The royal government rolled out a cash transfer program under the ID Poor system for the first time to more than 3.2 million people in a matter of a few weeks. This was a remarkable achievement, and of which this government is justly proud. I am pleased that the United Nations played a supporting role in that effort. Our economic modeling, led from the UN side by UNDP and in partnership with the Ministry of Economy and Finance, showed how social protection spending reduces poverty by more than 4%, and through a positive shock to demand, improves GDP by almost 1%. When people are kept out of poverty, they not only have those rights and dignity protected, they can participate in the wider economy, and that benefits everyone. The experience has made clear how social protection is not a cost or a drag on prosperity, but an investment in people that helps create a more dynamic, inclusive, and robust economy. UNDP is following up with new research on the cash transfer program, and I'm pleased to be able to share some of this with you now. You're the first to hear this, and perhaps Nick, if he's able to connect the resident representative of UNDP, can further elaborate in the discussion if there's time. In this study, we asked recipients and non-recipients, those at or below the poverty line, how they perceive their government. Those receiving the ID Poor cash transfer were strongly more positive in their perception of the government. Approval rose from 85% to almost 100%. What we draw from this is that there is an important role for social protection in creating social solidarity, a highly valuable political asset. A nation that grows together, where everyone feels they are valued and have a stake, will achieve a much more resilient, and stable prosperity. There's a lot more to be done. And one of those includes strengthening the on-demand ID PUR system as we are seeing now in the red zones. And I think that will be a very good topic as part of your next dialogue on food security and poverty. Second policy area, there's a deeper awareness of what we can gain through our recovery from COVID that not just preserves our natural environment, but sees how it can reinforce our growing prosperity. This addresses SDG 13 on the climate crisis, and those SDGs focus on protecting our planet and our future prosperity. If I may paraphrase US President Biden, when I think about green growth, I think about jobs. The old ideas of trade-off between growth and environmental protection are a myth, and a dangerous one at that. I hope His Excellency Sai Samal will allow me, but to cite some research we're currently reviewing with the National Council for Sustainable Development. We have learned that each dollar invested in green growth in Cambodia, as opposed to carbon economies, produces consistently higher levels of GDP. It creates not just jobs, but jobs with higher skills. Green technology, the skills needed to produce electric vehicles, solar grids, waste to energy, pushes the workforce into higher productivity and higher wages. The IMF also just came out with similar findings globally. Clean energy investments produce between 2 and 7 times the GDP than those in brown energy. In addition, as countries and companies around the world are adopting carbon neutrality targets, international investments are moving away from locations with a brown energy mix. Some of the largest buyers in the garment sector in Cambodia have publicly expressed their concern on this issue. The government has already made some smart investments toward a greener economy. Upgrading the electricity grid to be more adaptable and resilient allows greater use of wind and solar. His Excellency Minister Sai Samal has opened up millions of dollars of reference level payments under the RED Plus carbon credit scheme. But other policy decisions on coal-fired power stations and the sale of large areas of protected forest point to the opposite direction. You could say we're at the decision point. Are we best off with brown old technology, accepting lower future growth, or do we go for the new technology and green growth? I'm well aware of just how difficult the political economy challenges are preventing a green growth direction, but the gains are so great. I think the positive outcome is more than just possible. Finally, the SDGs are a political statement. They are suffused with the values of inclusion and equity and driven to ensure that sustainable development leaves no one behind and achieve gender equity. In SDG 16, there is the commitment to fundamental freedoms, tying the achievement of SDGs back to the fulfillment of human rights. SDG 16 are at the center of the royal government's commitments in the rectangular strategy. Governance of people and society's protection, planetary well-being, prosperity, peace, and partnerships. In some ways, the governance and human rights issues is not only my final area for policy recommendation, but also key to making my other recommendations on prosperity and sustainability possible. Creating space for civil society, encouraging participation, creativity, and innovation, protected by the rule of law, are good in themselves for the creation of peace and justice. They also make for a more dynamic and participatory society and economy. I trust that these SDG dialogues will make a useful contribution as Cambodia considers its policy options in a post-COVID economy. And I look forward to mobilizing the United Nations Development System to support the royal government's policy recommendations and work closely with partners to take action together. We learned from COVID that we are only stronger together, and we need to come in solidarity. Thank you for inviting the UN in today's discussions, and hopefully we can participate in the succeeding dialogues. Akonchara.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pauline, for your valuable remarks. Next, I would like to invite Excellency Sujara to deliver his remark on culture and sustainable development. Please, Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Excellencies, Minister Saisamal, and the Chair of National Council for Development, Dr. Pauline Temesis, Resident Coordinator of the United Nations in Cambodia, Dr. Chiang Wanrat, President of AVI, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. First of all, I'd like to congratulate AVI for initiating this important program, AVI SDG Dialogue. I believe it will serve as an interactive platform for all key stakeholders, including policymakers, development partners, practitioners, researchers, private sectors, and ordinary citizens to engage and discuss matters fundamental for 2030 Sustainable Development Goal. With multi-sectoral scope of SDG, it is clear that there are synergy between COVID-19 economic recovery plans and the commitment toward achievement of SDG, from the decent work and economic growth to industry, innovation, climate change, response, and environmental protection. A well-formulated and practical plan can meaningfully contribute to economic recovery and sustainable and inclusive developments, which eventually lead to building a green, clean, low carbon, and resilient society. Honorable guests, please allow me to put my hat as a Director General of Asian Cultural Councils on the delve into the role of cultures for economic recovery and sustainable development. Culture is firmly anchored in the SDG. Its role for balancing economic growth with social development and environmental protection are undeniable. Countries around the world have harnessed culture-based tourism, which account for 40% of the global tourism, cultures and creative industry for revenue generation, economic growth and development. Culture significantly contribute to inclusive social development through decent job creation, local income generation, community participation, skill development, conflict prevention and resolution, and peace building, among others. The culture-based education is a key for promoting indigenous knowledge and sustainable practice in consumption and production, clean and renewable energies, use and management of ocean, fresh waters, and land resources, and environmental protection. With our sight set for economic recovery and achievement of SDG, I believe it is imperative and timely to invest more into culture-based development, which allow us to harness the maximize potential use of abundant cultural assets, both tangible and intangible, and for economic growth, recent employment, innovation, skill development, and technological advancements. I'm very pleased to applaud the Royal Government of Cambodia for initiating a cultural-based development project called Daecho 100 Village project, using cultures as a core and guided by technology, education, cooperation, humanity, and ownership. I believe this distinctive project will act as drivers and enable for Cambodia economic recovery and for the achievement of SDG. To support this culture-based development initiative, it may be an ideal to establish a cultural corridor, which abandon the significant cultural corridor connecting unique cultures and historical heritages, can possibly serve as a compass guiding our development efforts, which allow national and international visitors to appreciate the value of historical and cultural root of Cambodia. Moreover, cultural corridor in Cambodia can gradually be connected with heritage sites in neighboring countries along the Mekong and in the regions and wide Asian nations. This would provide a unique opportunity for embracing Asian diversity while promoting culture-based development and tourism growth. Similarly, we experience a rapid pace of digital technology transformation and increasing consumption of digital contents and the products. It is important and necessary to revisit our approach for the development of cultural and creative industries. More investment for mass production and distribution of cultural and creative products and services, including establishment of virtual museum, and interactive platform for cultural and natural heritages, fine art and craft, performance and entertainment may be required. This would help generate more revenue from selling cultural goods and services, provide decent job and employment for artists and cultural professionals, and bring culture-based tourism back to life. To drive the above culture-based development initiative forward, participants and engagement of multi-stakeholders are required. Strong government leadership, private sector's investment, local ownership, and leadership, development partners, and active engagement of civil society and are the foundation of the success of this initiative. In this regard, I would like to engage all key stakeholders to actively participate and support the initiative. Thank you very much for your attention. May you be blessed with peace, happiness, success, and longevity for Vesak Bojia Day today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for your insightful remarks. Last but not least, I'm pleased to invite Excellency Sai Som-a to present his remarks on SDG in Cambodia and official launching the AVI SDG dialogue. Please, Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, I am pleased to be with you today for the launch of the AVI SDG dialogue. On behalf of the National Council for Sustainable Development and the Ministry of Environment, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Asian Vision Institute for organizing this important series of SDG dialogue, and in particular for inviting me to be part of the dialogue. As you know, Cambodia has a positive track record in implementing the Millennium Development Goals. Cambodia had met majority of her MDG target since 2015. This including remarkable progress in reducing poverty and hunger, improving child and maternal health, and demining. Cambodia has also been one of the top performers in the region in improving Human Development Index. As one of SDG players, the National Council for Sustainable Development and the Ministry of Environment always consider the 2030 SDG target to be a key point of reference in formulating our various policy and strategy aimed at promoting environmental protections, natural resources management, and biodiversity conservation, raising environmental awareness and educations, monitoring and evaluating economic land concession, addressing land conflicts, transferring of natural resource environments and natural resources management function to subnational administration, and improving local community, in particular in the protections and conservation of natural resources and their living conditions. Indeed, achieving the 2030 SDG target would importantly contribute to the success of our core missions, as well as to realization of Cambodia vision to attain upper level middle income status by 2030. However, like other countries all over the world, Cambodia is going through a very difficult time, and we need a stronger solidarity and cooperation from all to emerge from this public health crisis. We also need to rethink about our development plans, and at the same time, we must keep our focus on long-term development objective for our country. COVID is a clear and present reminder of the need to find an economic model that is sustainable and respectful of our natural resources and environment. The way we manage recovery from this difficult period will define Cambodia development path for years to come. This is why these dialogues are very timely. So where do we go next? First, there is some unfinished business. We need to maintain our effort in the fight against poverty, in the improvement of public services on all and social welfare, As a newly emerged middle-income country, we need to ensure that we open new opportunity to all households and strengthen our support to disadvantaged areas and group of population to ensure that no one is left behind. This is even more crucial now as the economic impact of the pandemic have disproportionately affects the poor. Secondly, we need to understand the trend of the global economy and geopolitics and position Cambodia to benefit from this trend. The digital economy and green economy provide great example. Digital solution allow business to be more efficient and competitive, create more value, and also in many cases reduce their environmental and climate impacts. This is a win-win for economy and sustainable development. The same thing can be said for smart city or smart energy management solution. As a developing country, we do not need to choose among economic growth, environmental protection, biodiversity conservation, or sustainable development. Striking a right balance, we can find appropriate development path that work for Cambodia in accordance with motto conservation for development and development for conservation. My third point is about education and health. They provide the foundation for all other goals. If we want to realize this vision of sustainable and develop Cambodia, quality education is a must. Strong human resource will be a key to attract investment and growth of our economy. We must ensure that access to education is inclusive and encourage students to study subjects where they know that specialized skill will be required, in particular science, technologies, and engineering. In the current context, I do not need to emphasize how crucial it is to keep investing in our health system, both in infrastructures and human resources. We cannot see our development potential under constant threat from global pandemic and other medical emergencies. Lastly, I want to specifically emphasize the need for efficient and sustainable natural resource management. Like all developed economy before us, we need to use natural resources to improve the level of well-being of our population. We also know that these resources are limited, that we must find an innovative way to use them more efficiently and in a sustainable way. Technological solution exists, whether it is in energy sectors, in constructions, in transportation, in water management, or in agriculture. Protection and conservation of natural resources can also deliver value to our economies and people's livelihoods. As an example, ecotourism and access to water resources are highly dependent on the preservation of our ecosystem, thus providing protected area community with better sustainable livelihoods, economic opportunities, promoting agro-industry like cashews and softwood plantations, and securing markets access and trade, as well as high price for carbon emission trading, among the innovative strategic approach we consider viable to address such complex nexus in the long run. We are not starting from scratch. As we point out above, the royal government policy objectives are already close aligned with the SDG agenda. A recent UN assessment found that 88% of SDG targets were already reflected in government strategies and plans. Now is a key time to reflect our existing commitment, incorporate the lesson learned from this unprecedented global crisis, and charted a sustainable way forward for Cambodia. Before closing my remark, I would like to call on stakeholders, government, development partners, non-government organizations to align their efforts and work closely together to address our pressing issue. Indeed, the current global pandemic has provided us with many important lessons, and Cambodia strongly believes that only with global solidarity through multilateralism can we effectively address the global health crisis and other global challenges, such as achieving the 2030 SDG target as well as dealing with climate change. I hope that this series of dialogue will shed extra light on the way forward, and I wish the dialogue fruitful discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Excellency, for your meaningful remarks. Excellency, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, we seem to finish our program a bit early, so may we have a short Q&A session now? So if any question or any comment you wish to raise, please.
Thank you, Charia, and thank you, Excellencies, for the very insightful remarks. And maybe I would like to post my first question to Ms. Pauline, Dr. Pauline, with regard to financing for SDG. I think because now the resources, I mean, have been diverted to fighting against the pandemic and so on. And of course, the economic fallout from the pandemic have affected the progress of SDG implementation. So what are the innovative financing mechanisms that you think Cambodia need to do more in order to finance SDG goals? Thank you.
Dr. Vanarith, thank you for the question. Actually, financing is an important focus of the United Nations system in Cambodia, precisely because of the reasons that you have elaborated. First and foremost, we are aware that the government is financing its pandemic response, health response, and also the socio-economic response through the social assistance, primarily through its own resources. So that is actually a great confidence boost in the government, that you have the domestic capacity and resources, budget resources to do this. But we are also, together with you, concerned and working on the sustainability of these financing flows. And in this regard, the UN, primarily with UNDP, the UN Capital Development Fund, with the UN Department for Economic and Social Affairs, have embarked on a wider effort on what we call helping put in place integrated national financing frameworks. Essentially, it's to ensure that the financing architecture are geared up towards the interconnected goals of the development priorities of the government, first and foremost, and support that financing for the SDG. So first is the architecture that includes not only domestic resources, but also how to tap into private investment capacity. I think this is an uncharted territory in Cambodia, and this is where I think we can work very closely with the Ministry of Economy and Finance, private sector, to unleash. There are various tools within the private sector, including impact investment tools that can be tested in Cambodia. There is already strong tradition of philanthropic giving in Cambodia through the OCNIAS, the contributions to the vaccine effort. How can we make this more systematic and really geared towards financing the SDGs through these channels? We also know that through UNDP and UNCDF engagement with the National Bank of Cambodia, together with partners such as ADB and the World Bank, there are efforts, for example, to establishing bonds. Here is an additional monetary policy that hasn't been fully optimized, given that currently the Cambodian economy is still a dollarized economy. These discussions are ongoing, and we are hoping that the first issuance of bonds will also be really focused on the green economy infrastructure as well, and supporting the leapfrogging of investments in green infrastructure rather than to the brown economies or the traditional economies that fueled growth in Cambodia in the past. There's a lot more that needs to be done. I think we are on the right path, and we look forward to working closely with partners such as AVI on how we can make more progress on this important question. Thank you very much, Dr. Vanarith.
Thank you, Dr. Pauline. We have a question from Ms. Suchita to Excellency Minister Saisum Al. how can we ensure the waste management is properly managed, and what are the roles of private sector? Is there any subsidy for private sector in the waste management in Cambodia? Excellency.
Thank you very much for the questions. In short, currently we are not looking at giving out any subsidy in regarding to waste management at this stage. But what I can tell you that currently we delegate the role and functions of this waste management to the subnational level. For example, we give this the role and the function to district level, to city level, and the city and or district they can pick a private company, or they can initiate a public company if they wish to do so, to manage their own waste in according to their district situations. And but I also can tell you that in Phnom Penh area, the government is very actively organizing a waste management scheme that will be run by 3 companies for Phnom Penh city. And we also will organizing a transfer city where transfer stations where the waste will be, all the waste from the city will take out to these transfer stations, and we should be able to collect those valuable waste, such as plastic, such as can. We can remove that before we finally transfer all those waste to the, the final destination that we also currently setting up just outside of Phnom Penh city. Yeah. And the ministry also giving out waste collecting trucks to other city and other district as well, and then help to set up the management scheme for each of the city as well. So yeah, but in short, no, we're not currently looking at a subsidy. We do not believe in subsidy for waste management, and also Cambodia do not need subsidy at this stage. But again, come back to my point that we assist each of the district and each of the city by providing them with waste collecting trucks and all that. But that is not subsidy, but we just want to assist them in this early stage, right? So that hopefully in the near futures, they can run the waste management scheme on their own. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency Minister. We have another question with regards to a post-pandemic SDG policy of the Cambodian government. Does the Cambodian government have any policy response to the post-pandemic with regards to SDG, how to maintain the momentum of SDG development, the implementations? Next question also related to this with regards to the report by UNIDO recently that Cambodia need to focus more on the food, micro-food industry and the tourism industry. So this may be some of the priorities for the Cambodian to focus on. So your comments on this. So I start with Excellency Minister first, and then Excellency Suhyara, and then Dr. Pauline on these 2 questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I would go first to the post policy regard to this pandemic. I think we all has clearly see there's a number of initiatives that the government has put forward in dealing with this crisis, particularly put out by the Ministry of Economic and Finance. If I remember correctly, there's a few rounds already of policy being introduced to deal with the pandemics. And I'm sure and very confident that the Ministry of Economy and Finance will introduce a new set of policy in dealing with this post-pandemic recovery. And for the food security, I would like just to make this comment that and to give example for the community that living in the protected area. In our protected area, we very actively implementing the government policy from various sectors, including educations, energies, road constructions, water resources management, and you name it, even sanitations also including. So my job now is to make sure that all these policy being implemented in the community that living in the protected area. Make sure that the community that live in the protected area receive the same benefit as those that living outside the protected area. So in the long run, we are hoping that the living conditions of those that living outside the protected area are just equal to those that living within the protected area. But I would like to point out, stress that for food productions in the protected area, we encourage people to have food security, especially basic needs for their own use, for their family use. We also encourage them to shift to raise animal such as cattle, buffaloes, sheep, and goats as well in those protected areas as well. So the idea is that at least they have a food security, whatever happens for their community, for their family. And also currently we are pushing for carbon credit, the price of the carbon credit to go higher. As you can see now, the current price is about $5 to $6 per ton. And with this price, we start to see really good results. For example, in Kausema, after we sell this carbon, people in that area starting to receive clean water, starting to receive funding for their villages for development from this carbon. So now we try to go one step further. To sell our carbon is at a higher price, so that we can channel those money to the rural community, to the community that live in a protected area, to improve their livelihoods. And also we also working very actively for people for access to markets, especially their products, agriculture products, for them to access to market here in Phnom Penh and to other cities such as Battambang, Siem Reap, Kampong Thom, Posat. These are the market that we're looking at, so that we working closely with a transport company to transport those products, from the community to the market. And also we also very actively working with our partner, so to sell those products to international market too. Even softwood, pepper, cashew nuts, mangoes. See, these are the products that we have plenty. So now, in order to protect our environment, to protect our biodiversity, the idea is to improve the livelihood of our people that living in those protected areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency Minister. Excellency Sujara, perhaps you can pick up a question on tourism industry, how to revive tourism industry in the post-COVID situations.
Thank you, President Van, and thank you, ministers. Just only a bit up on the tourism, cultural tourism. Cambodia has a foundation of ecotourism. Ecotourism mean for us is natural tourism and heritage tourism. So both together are the foundation of Cambodia. And I agree with you that and with our friend who comment on this question that the basic for our new development and the foundation of Cambodia economic growth could have to be based on the cultural tourism and agriculture-based tourism as well. Food security is also included. So in order to restart with this kind of tourism or cultural tourism after the post-COVID, so this is really a need for us to understand what are the community-based needed for the reopening of our tourism gate. So adaptation is the best view for Cambodian people and for the economies in the sectors, leading sectors like Excellency Saisamal mentioned. Ministry of Economic and Finance has a bunch of prepared policy to launch for the post-COVID recovery. But ourselves, we need to understand who we are. To start with the cultural tourism, of course, we have a large amount of natural resources plus the heritage or man-made resources. So those are the key for us to understand this value and to adapt it through the technological innovation. So technological innovation, as in my speech earlier, I mentioned the virtual museum. So virtual museum is a key related to the creation of the cultural corridor. So cultural corridor is a kind of series of network that we can align ourselves with the country position where we are located along the Mekong country. So at this moment, Cambodia alone cannot fly, but if we fly together, we can manage the cultural portal or tourism portal that everyone can enjoy. You already know the technological innovation, including something like YouTube, like Netflix, or like others application, Apple TV, and so. So why can we not? Why we cannot produce our virtual cultural tourism portal that we can carry out as a cultural corridor gateway from the beginning? So this need to be started. So then if we could provide of this, our artists, our performance, our culturals, academia, and all those could join in hand with us and produce this kind of platform, and people can enjoy, people can benefit. Just let's say Hollywood alone could produce how much $1 billion a year, but how our cultural portal, how much we can produce. So all those artists could benefit from their performance, from their daily activities. They can come back to life as long as we can adapt through cultural and technological innovation. And I like to add more on the food security. I could see two things, because Cambodia-based agriculture country. So we need to understand what we can be secure for our futures. I agree with Dr. Pauline for our future is prosperous and secure for our young children and next generation to come. So position of Cambodia, apart from cultural tourism, agriculture is at the foundation of our identity. So to rise up after the post-COVID or after the COVID-19, we need to understand how we assess our result. Our result, of course, I agree with Dr. Saisamal about the using of natural resources, but by the time we are using natural resources, we need to fill the stomach. So the stomach is important for our people and communities. Of course, we have 2 million hectares of land, but very little of them have been irrigated. So we need to be irrigated with all this kind of land and expanded land. What I mean, from 2 million hectares now to 5 million hectares. So could Cambodia serve as two purposes? One, for domestic use of the food and security in the domestic people when in time of crisis. Second is about the food reserve for the region. So we know our country, even ASEAN, we have 10 countries, but all the country, how many hectares of land are being allocated for food security. So this is a matter of Cambodia can play an important role, not just for ourselves, but we can also guarantee the food safety in our region for the amount and the large scale of land that we've been allocated for agriculture with adaptation of technology and innovation. So I think these two can make a Cambodian is a prosperous and a good position in the futures. That's why we have to consider the public, private, and people partnership. This is very important. PPP is already inscribed in after our the objective of our one ratio 100 village. So this is could be one of the model that we can produce from now, and we can let our community to understand, and we can also educate people to know what we are going to, because policy cannot be set only just for government or top leaders, but we need the grassroots people, the community to understand what we are doing too, and they have a knowledge basic that we can upgrade their skill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. I think several questions to Dr. Pauline, and she already responded by writing, but I think for the sake of our audience on Facebook Live and our YouTube channel and other social media, please, we need your voice.
Great, thank you very much, Dr. Vannerit. It is an important question, the important question of how post-pandemic and SDG policies really come together. For the UN, and I believe the government as well, we understand this COVID pandemic recovery as an opportunity to accelerate the SDGs. The time is now. There is no going back to the old normal. Right now, in the building forward better from the pandemic, we have the opportunity to integrate transformation policies. We have the opportunity to reimagine what inclusion, sustainability, and equity really works, how it really works in practice, because COVID is already telling us that most of the policies, if not done well, will not really get us out of this crisis. We are working very closely with royal government, particularly with the Ministry of Economy and Finance and other line ministries on social protection as one example. But social protection needs to be together with universal healthcare coverage, for example. Excellency Saisamal talked about the importance of education and health as the foundations for us to actually achieve the SDGs. He is very correct. Human resource capability that is healthy, educated, and competitive for future economies really need to be at the basis of this recovery strategy. So inclusive education, universal health access, social services, and social protection needs to be at the core. This is part of the 3 R's of the Ministry of Economy and Finance, the economic recovery. This is the resilience R, and the UN has committed to the government that we will support as part of our efforts to build forward better and accelerate SDGs. There are 2 other parts of that resilience R, which is the green infrastructure and all that we've talked about. Now is the time to look at how do we transition from brown economies? How do we transition from fossil fuel generated growth? This is really the time to test and innovate. And I've heard that commitment from all of the panel speakers. The 3rd leg of that resilience pillar is digital economy. We are seeing it now with the online access to food by those in the red zone. How do we change this? How do we ensure that most people have digital access? How do we ensure that learning on digital platforms are really adjusted to meet the needs of the young population? It is not about translating books into digital platform. It's to train a whole new generation of teachers and education professionals to move towards a digital learning society, but make sure that the needs of the younger cohorts are actually met. We are seeing studies that the primary school education kids are not really attuned to digital learning. This is not a platform. So how do we do hybrid? How do we approach this? To wrap all of that up, we really need to address gender equity and human rights, because people are really the drivers of us being able to recover from this pandemic. And we need to address the inequality that has been exacerbated by COVID pandemic, whether it be access to food, access to services, access to healthcare, access to vaccines. If we leave behind groups of people, we will never come out of this pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pauline. We could only entertain one last question, which regard to urban planning and sustainable development. I think this question, perhaps Excellency Minister can respond briefly before we close our launching event. With regard to the sustainable urban planning and development, Excellency Minister.
Thank you very much. We at the Ministry of Environment, we consider urban planning is very crucial to achieve sustainable development and also ensure a good environment. You see, at the Ministry of Environment, we often refer to a livable city. That's the term we often use among our leadership, our policy makers, our policy implementers, that whatever you do, you must create a living space, a city, a home that livable, to ensure cleanliness, to ensure that waste can be managed properly, to ensure that, for example, there's no floodings, and also we design a city that also use less energy, including different architect designs, different material, even the way we plant trees also will help to trap pollution, will help to reduce pollution, will help to clean up our air, and also maybe reduce a lot of energy use. Even concrete, right? Some of the city, when we discover concrete, that is one of the best material, construction material that anybody can find at that time. But now our thinking has changed. We have to live in coexistence with nature. So we use less concrete and more of and attain most of the natural features or landscape. Let me give you some specific city that we help to give the idea to. For example, Cape City, a very magnificent city by the sea. If you want to have a relaxed getaway, a family getaway, is to go to Cape. We have great seafood. I don't know about you, but to me, the taste of crab, seafood in Cape is quite distinct from other seaport of city, coastal city of Cambodia. Cape is produce a very distinctive taste of seafood. Why? Because of the seagrass. In Cape, the Sea of Cape, right? A lot of seagrass, very shallow water. So these are the things that people need to understand, that they need to keep that, right? They need to keep, they need to protect that environment so that we have that type of seafood for Cape, right? And also Cape need to design in a way that the city would use less energy, design in a way that retain a lot of natural look to the city. And Cape has doing very well, the way they design their city. The architects of the resort, the hotel also retain many of these features that that have a lot of environmental character in them. And at the back of the city is a national park. It's a park, people can go and enjoy. So these are the things that we see that city design, urban design is very important. You need to make your first step right. So this is one of the cities that we see there's a lot of potential. Even Phnom Penh City, the way we design the city is to ensure the airflow across the city, therefore make the cities cooler. You see, Phnom Penh City is on the bank of the Mekong River, right? And as the Mekong water flow from the north to south, right? And except during the rain season where the water flow north toward the Tule Sap Lake, the flow of the water help to cool the city down. That's why we need to harness that features, that God-given features, nature-given features to make our city livable and use less energy to live in the city, right? And also Siem Reap, Excellency Suhyara has mentioned it, has talked about it. Siem Reap is very special, a heritage city. So you need to design a city that incorporate that features, right? That heritage is not just for Cambodia, but it's for the people of the world as well. So the way we design Siem Reap city is very important. As you aware that the government investing a lot of money in upgrading infrastructure in Siem Reap, that including proper drainage, that including a lot of this cable will go underground as well. So this is a small thing that people often overlook, but these are the feature that we need to pay attention to in urban designs. And I know that people that design all these roads, they put a lot of environmental character in this design. And lastly, you can see from Senowil, right? A city by the sea, great city, the city of international potential. It's not just for Cambodia, international potential. We improving our port, make it deeper. The airport is also can accommodate bigger flight and longer flight as well from Europe. Electricity now we're converting into gas rather than depend on coal, not depend on just coal, but also on gas. The road constructions is almost done, and a lot of this construction, a lot of this road has a lot of walking path for bicycle, and we plant different trees as well. We also create a reservoir for more people that can live in the city. For example, Bao Chai, everybody know now and understand the need to protect Bao Chai because that's the only source of fresh water for Senowil. People understand that. A lot of mangrove has been protected because the seafood for the city come from that mangrove. People start to understand that, right? People speak English, speak Chinese now, the language of the international community. So I think now I think Cambodia have really, in my opinion, really, stand up on our feet, recover from the Khmer Rouge. We start to build the city for economic growth, for sustained economic growth. And Senowil, I believe, would be a new hub for ASEAN. A new emerging city where many sectors, particularly in finance, that can participate, can see the potential in Senowil. So, in short, of course, urban design is very important for environment. The basic line is make sure whatever you do, whatever you design, it needs to be a livable city that have clean air, clean environments, clean energy. These are the features that we need to pay attention to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency Minister, and thank you for those who asked questions. And sorry that we could not answer all. We will have many more rounds of dialogue, and this is just the beginning. And we have seen inspiring comments and questions and interactions. So back to Acharya, our moderator.
Thank you so much, Excellency, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, for your very interesting discussion. So next, may I invite you all for the group photo, please? Okay, Excellency, I will count 1, 2, 3, and then please give a smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much, Your Excellency, Honorable Guest, for your kindly cooperation. So before closing our program, I would like to deeply thank all honorable speakers for spending your valued time with us today and all the audience for following us till the end. Please stay tuned for the next program on food security and poverty amidst COVID-19 in the following month on 21st May 2021. Wish you all suffer from COVID pandemic. Thank you so much.